Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Soul Channel. As usual, I have an absolutely brilliant guest, and the wisdom that she is going to share today is going to blow your minds. It's going to open doors for new perceptions on how to be happy in your life. And let's face it, that's what we all want. Soul Channel is a place for seekers to cultivate clarity, normalize spirituality, raise consciousness so we can change the world. Welcome and welcome to Ragini Michaels. So good to have you here.
Thank you. It's a gift to be here.
Oh, thank you. Let me tell you a little about Ragini before we dive into this juicy conversation. Ragini Elizabeth Michaels is an internationally acclaimed trainer of NLP, which is Neuro-Linguistic Programming for those who don't know, Ericksonian Style Hypnosis, and her unique behavioral change process known as paradox management, or how to stay happy, centered, and peaceful no matter what. She's run a successful private practice for over 4 decades, helping people achieve their desire for personal and professional transformation. She's authored 7 books, is on the Amazon best-selling author list, and is known for her integrity, humor, and heart. And today we are going to discuss the paradox of happiness. So, Ragini, I'm so excited to share this information with everyone. Can you start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
I sure can. First of all, thank you for having me. Um, I guess the thing that's most relevant to talking about the paradox of happiness is my own experience of having a very reasonably good life, not super well off, but a good solid middle class life with not a lot of difficulties, and yet being very unhappy my entire life, right?
Yeah.
And so I, of course, went on a spiritual search to discover what was this about when I had everything. You could always have more, of course. But the point is that with what I had didn't make me happy. So, of course, I did meditation retreats and I had teachers and I traveled to India multiple times, of course, stayed in an ashram for a while, did the whole thing, right? Of course, only to discover that the place to go to find happiness was inside, right?
Yeah.
So took a lot of money, a lot of years, a lot of time to get that. I think today's seekers are a little bit more savvy than I was, that this was a while back. But one of the things I want to share, I guess, that will help explain why happiness has been my drive, my passion, but also the power of understanding the paradox of it. And the key to that came to me when I was in India. I was sitting on an embankment behind the ashram where I was visiting, and this beggar, and I was sitting there feeling sorry for myself because here I was in the heartland of spirituality, and I'm going, but I'm still miserable. I'm
Yeah.
not happy. Not that I even actually knew what that was, but I knew that I didn't have something that I wanted. So I'm sitting there and this beggar guy comes up. He starts to walk. I'd seen him before, but he's in tattered clothes. He has no teeth. He has no shoes on, and his hands are out and he's begging for alms. And then I noticed that there's this smile on his face. And I'm looking at this smile, which is just brilliant. And his eyes are almost shining light, And I'm looking at this dude thinking, oh my God, I could never be happy in those circumstances, ever. And while I
Yeah.
was sitting there watching him and having this experience of someone who was in the worst condition that I could imagine for myself, which was utter poverty and having to beg for food, I had this insight that he gave to me, which was, oh my goodness, the way I've defined happiness is completely wrong. Because for me, happiness was the absolute absence of all unhappiness. So it didn't matter how happy I was. As soon as it departed, I was unhappy. Everything that came after the happiness was like exited the door. It was like, well, I'm unhappy now. And so I really got the first clue that happiness, real happiness, happiness that can't go away, had to do with embracing the paradoxical nature of being a human being, which ultimately rests in the fact that we live in a world of polarities and everything is always changing, right? And of
Yeah.
course, I'd been trying to stop change. I'd been trying to get rid of half of every polarity I ran into. Happy, let's get rid of sad. Wealthy, let's get rid of poor. Connected,
Yeah.
let's get rid of disconnected. Alone, I mean, together, let's get rid of alone. I mean, it was like clear to me all of a sudden in this great big flash, like the New York big sign up there. It was like in neon lights above my head. Oh, you don't understand what happiness is at all. It's accepting everything, including the negative. Now, that sounds maybe kind of stupid at one level or so elementary, but our entire brain and body is not wired for that. And that's where my background from NLP and Ericksonian hypnosis comes in. Even though the truth is sitting right there for us, we can't get to it because of our brain. It's not wired for that kind of perception. And because of our unconscious mind, because it's not programmed to even allow that idea to come into being. Our job is to get rid of everything we don't like so that we can have what we do like permanently. So this turned my whole head around, and the next 35 years has become the articulation of all of this into some programs where I could get clear myself and then pass it on to other people, because it's a life changer. It's transformative and makes a difference down to everyday life, which was my goal. How can I be happy in everyday life? And that's
Right.
kind of what I'm about. That helped to give you some insight as to where I'm coming from.
It does indeed. And I absolutely love the way that you describe navigating out of what I call life by default, which is conforming to all of the societal standards for happiness or success, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's all defined by your job, your title, how much money you make, what you own, the toys you have.
mhm,
And
absolutely.
that leaving that behind and understanding that that is not the measure of success. Success or happiness is found
Mhm.
from within, and we get to define it.
We have to define it. And I found for me, and with a lot of people I've shared this with, that defining it expands to embracing the darker side of ourselves, not wasting time trying to get rid of it. And that is
Yeah,
such a core drive for both the brain and the body, that the goal is to set up what you like against what you dislike, and then spend your time trying to get rid of what you dislike. I mean, we don't even
yeah,
focus really on what we want. We're just running from what we don't want. So
yeah,
once you stop, like you say, and you go, okay, I'm going to from the inside change my perception, the way I'm viewing this, and honor my experience, because there's a way to live with both sides, and it's to find the balancing point in between, because they're
yeah,
always going to go back and forth. The proverbial tug of war, inner tug of war that everybody experiences. Should I do this? Should I do that? Well, on one hand, I think this way, but on the other hand, I think that way. And you can see it in your very body, right? You're going back and forth and back and forth. So the key is really understanding that that's not going to stop. That is the flow of life, back and forth. But we can find, there's a way to find the balancing point in the middle, so that it still goes on, but you're only going like this, just a
yeah,
little bit back and forth,
yeah.
instead of this, which is
The wild
exhausting.
swings. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and let me give you some context. You're talking to a Libra. So we live in the back and forth, okay?
you do. You do. True.
And and by being that by nature, finding that inner peace and balancing the polarities, stop going from
Yeah.
here to here and just make it the flow of life, um, is that inner journey. So I love that. you're empowering individuals to move within, to define their flow of life. And
Yeah.
I want to, I don't consider unhappiness, or I don't consider that the dark. I consider that a reflection, because we couldn't have the vast amounts of joy without the other
Right.
side of unhappiness, right?
Right. Right. Of course, we don't have to define the unhappiness as unhappiness. We could define it in something that might be more supportive to our ability to relax into it, learn from it, gather its wisdom, and then move back into the other side. So a lot of it is about changing our viewpoint. Really,
Mm-hmm.
the core is changing our viewpoint. And that's where the brain and the unconscious mind come into play. Because as you started off talking, the default conditioning is what runs the unconscious mind. Now, a lot of people don't know this. Let me just throw it into the mix of the conversation that
Please
I
do.
learned in I learned in neuro-linguistic programming that there is a mechanism in the brain. It's called the direction filter, and it sorts for giving us a direction for survival. When we
Mm-hmm.
interface with the territory, it says it's safe to go forward, or it's not, you have to move away. So it gives
Right.
us either go forward or go back, either go into it or move away from it. This is the only option that is there for survival physically, where it works great. It
Right.
doesn't work for emotional and mental and spiritual survival at all. So what we're doing in this work is we're in, you can either say we're installing a new coding in the brain for the both and perspective or the paradox mindset,
Mm-hmm.
or you could say we're stimulating that capacity which is already in the neurology of our brain. I don't care which way we go, but we got to stimulate to cause it to come into being. That's the key, I think, that makes this work on the paradox. And we're focusing on the Enneagram as well, as a way to get to happiness more quickly in this work. But I think that's one of the key differences that really empowers you
Yeah.
to make a change in your actual way of perceiving things, because now you'll have your brain on your side, right? And
Yeah.
it'll go, oh, I don't have to go either or, I could go both and, right? Which as
Yeah.
a Libra, you've already learned how to do. And it's not like we can't do it. It's just that we don't even think about it because it's not conditioned into our system. So
Yeah.
that's the value of mind. That's what makes the work that we're doing here different. And embracing happiness is a paradoxical phenomena. It just
Yeah.
makes life easier.
Yes. Yeah. It turns on the neural pathways that allow you to be in curiosity rather than
Yes, absolutely.
fatality. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
And so your journey is introducing new perceptions that
Yes.
are easily digestible and adoptable, and somebody can
Yep.
enact or step into with grace and ease. A little bit chunky in the beginning, but once you practice, it's like anything, right? It's like the piano.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you practice and you get better at it. And this, I'm going to paraphrase, but this takes us into the flow of life. This is what eases life's journey. Can you talk more about that, please?
Yeah, I love to talk about it, of course. That's why I'm here.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the flow, if we really understand, part of what this work helps us do is begin to see that we are living in a sea of polarities. Everywhere we look, there are sets of polar opposites. And if we look at it as living in a sea, I mean, we're surrounded by them, and it gets overwhelming sometimes. So if we can understand that there's a pattern in the flow of life, there's a pattern, it's hidden from us. Once we see it, life becomes much easier to navigate. One of the ways that I can talk about that a little bit is if you watch a river and you watch the water flowing through the river bank, it goes from the right bank to the left bank to the right bank to the left bank, and it doesn't seem to have a preference. It doesn't demand to stay on one side and avoid the other. That's what
Mhm.
we do. Now, the traditional meditative approach is to sit on the bank. Okay. So I'm saying it's easier to stay on the bank if you also know how to stand in the middle of the flow and feel it, so that you're watching the flow go from this polarity to that, from happiness to sadness, from joy to sorrow, from wanting to be alone to wanting to be together, from needing more money to feel totally at peace with what you have, no matter how little it is, back and forth. And that you start to do this little thing here. So like you're standing with one foot on each riverbank
Mhm.
and you're above the river, but you're still feeling it. Okay. And then once you've got a feel for that in your system, you go sit on the bank. But oftentimes we sit on the bank and what we end up doing is judging, because our life is going in a direction we don't like. So going with the flow, it's funny because when I ask people, what is the flow that you're going with, what is isness, people
Yeah.
go, what? And so
Yes.
we want to give our job in this work is to help us have a more definable visual, a more something we can actually speak to, that allows us to understand this is the flow. And we call it the hidden pattern inside the movement of life. There's a pattern there, and it tells us what to do. Go this way, go this way. Don't hang on to, I mean, all the spiritual edicts that we've been given. Let
Yeah.
go, drop your mind, do all that kind of stuff. It's so much easier to do if you understand what your experience is going to be, whether you like it or not. You're going to go back and forth.
Yeah. And so when you are moving into straddling the river, being one with the river as opposed to judging or bouncing back and forth, do you just find the inner landscape that is optimal for you? Or tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, in order to do it, in order to stand up, to transcend it a little bit, to stand above it, but still be connected to it, because you are in
Yeah.
a body, you have a mind, you're here in the world. So the inner world that you speak about and that I speak about is inside. And what it does is change your perspective, right? You're
Yeah.
seeing it differently. So when you're above it like that, right, then you're able to let it be what it is. So you really can just be with what is. But now you know what is refers to.
Yeah.
It refers to this flow of constant creativity, constant recreation of moment to moment to moment to moment. And instead of clinging to it and going, no, no, don't let go, don't go away, right? Or,
Yes.
oh no, not that, right? You're right there in it, and you're able to just be with the flow. But having this in your brain and your body, and understanding the role of impermanence, understanding the role of polarities, and understanding that change is the creative act,
Yeah.
and that you're a part of it if you want to be. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Am I making sense?
Totally makes sense. And for me, what I'm also hearing there is this ability to move into neutrality and not assigning right, wrong, yes, no, good, bad, but rather to be with everything. Is that a good reflection?
That's perfect. Really good. I read once something from the third Zen patriarch, I think it was, in Verses on a Faith Mind, and it really was helpful to me. It said, to set up what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. I went, okay, that goes with my event in India, right? I like this. Let me go with that. And then I read later on in that particular thing, it says, the outcome you're looking for is to be neither for nor against, neutrality, as you just mentioned. And I said, well, How do you do that? I haven't a clue how you do that. Come on. It's like telling me to drop my mind. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't get it, you know? So I'm one of those seekers who was like always saying, show me. I want to see it so I can do it myself. So I know for a fact, via my own experience,
Yeah.
that it is the truth that you're telling me. These things we're talking about here in the work that we've created in this Enneagram of Paradox and the working with the unconscious mind and the brain, the um, the primary issue is allowing certain mystical perspectives to be drawn upon. And the
Yeah.
things, so this is not only NLP and the unconscious mind, it's also drawing on mystic psychology because they have some basic premises. First of all, they demand that they have personal experience. All right, they're not going to believe anything. That's a trait of mystics, generally speaking, which you already know, of course, because you're one of those. And the thing that came in their psychology, not in their spirituality, and that's what interested me. The
Mhm.
highest priority was taking with them the awareness of impermanence. They talked about it as an advisor that was always at the head of the table at any conference meeting that was relating to a decision, right?
Yes.
So impermanence, polarities, and the necessity of movement was their highest value. Movement, not compassion, not love, not anything,
Mm.
movement. So that to me was like, oh, they really understand life is a flow. It's a flow, it's always
Yeah.
moving. And they're telling me that these are three things that I need to get like as a high priority in my brain. So a lot of the work is also focused around helping get those three things into our psychology to expand it, to allow it to hold more at a deeper level of what life is actually offering us. It's very cool.
It is very cool. And I love, excuse me, I love that you speak of the experience because the moment we have an experience, we
Yeah,
begin to own the wisdom. You know, we can't change through our mind only.
right. Yeah,
It has to be the felt sense, it has to be the heart, and to be able to touch on that intuitive place
very much so.
within, and we begin to train ourselves, right?
Yeah,
Through our into, oh, this is, oh, this feels aligned, oh, this does not feel aligned, and I'm curious what information it has for me,
yes.
right?
You are demonstrating and talking about what I call gathering the wisdom of your discontent. You know, it's
Yes.
there, and it's the thing that I missed by ignoring everything that made me unhappy. I missed so much practical wisdom, very practical, because I'm very concerned about like practicality here, right? let's
Yeah.
let's learn how to navigate the physical and emotional and mental realities, and then we're more easily going to be able to find the soul levels of the soul dimensions, which you have access to and people want access to, but don't know
Yep.
how to get there. So
Yep.
yeah, what you're speaking to is that totally matches my experience as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I for me, this is what I call a tipping point, and this is my business background stepping in, helping me define something, because the lessons we learn when we hit the highest peaks of joy and happiness,
Mhm.
we don't remember the way we remember our toughest moments. And I strongly believe, and I think in sync on this one, that when we have our 2x4 moments, when we have our challenges, it's simply to inform us of how to gain wisdom and grow, that life happens for you to evolve.
Yeah.
And when we're able to master this, then we become that gentle tree that sways in the wind.
Mm.
And I absolutely love that you've put this into a package to help people navigate this. That to me is life mastery. When we can step into something and hear what we need to change our lives,
Yeah.
that's everything. So,
It's everything. Yep. And it's there.
yeah,
It's there. You trust that. I trust that. But probably, I would even say, you know that, and I know that. And that's
yeah,
because we've experienced it so many times that we just trust it now completely. We know it's there. And that's a
yeah,
big step for a lot of people. Just even knowing that what they need is actually already there inside and
yeah.
waiting for their arrival to be, receive the gift. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
What you want wants you back.
Yes, it does. I like that. That really is
That is,
such a beautiful phrase, Teresa, because it really does help us understand and start to, put more energy into believing for a lot of us. Because I'm a very cynical seeker. I mean, I'm like one of the most cynical. I talk about love, and I go, that divine love stuff. But you kind of have to really have an experience of it and know that the
yeah,
idea that you articulated, which is so beautiful, is that what you want wants you.
yeah, it
I
does.
love that.
And
It's helped.
and please, this it's not my saying. I read it somewhere, so I'm not taking credit for it at all. It is somebody else's wisdom that I have borrowed with gratitude. And that's the evolution. That's a human journey. And you mentioned that you and I we have a certain level of wisdom that we've attained, but it doesn't mean that we stop. We're continuously mining. This isn't a destination, it's a journey, right? And we hear this in so many sayings from so many wise people, but
Yeah.
um when you have the tools to navigate it well, makes all the difference.
It makes difference. It's easier. You're kinder to yourself. Um, you beat yourself up less. You give yourself credit more, for being brave and courageous. And, in my case, dropping my cynicism. So yeah, it's a big leap for a lot of people, particularly people who are fairly mental, where that's one of their expertise, which is certainly the area where I excel, is on the mental side. It's hard to believe in some of the things that you find when you're intuitive like you are, and you're diving around in there and opening, and you've got all those juicy aspects of yourself present. So this work is really draws people to it who are a little more on the mental side, in the
Mhm.
sense that they're not yet so much in touch with their intuition, and maybe a little cynical like the founder of it. But whoever it is, it once we understand there's a pattern in the flow of life. I mean, that phrase, which is so bandied about these days, is a beautiful phrase, but we don't really understand what it means. And so my effort is to help us have a little more concrete definition around it, because the mind requires that. And since getting to where we are all trying to go requires us to go through our mind to find that level of divinity or spirit or soul or whatever you wish to call it that lives beyond the mind. Getting through the mind is a big challenge, and that's been my
Mhm.
my thing, to try and help us find ways to get through it. If it's helped me, I assume it's going to be able to help others as well.
Well, and I know speaking to some of your former students, it's helped tremendously. And
Yeah.
that's why we're having this conversation because A, it works, and B, 90 I got 98.7% of the people on the planet. My intuition has such interesting information for me sometimes. We all look at life from the mind first.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what we're taught. Hello,
Hmm.
school.
Yeah.
Everything in school is about developing your mind. not your heart, not your
Right.
spirit, not your soul.
Right.
So that's everybody. All of us have a place within us, myself included. You know,
Yeah.
I was lucky because I was born intuitive. That's always been a form of information for me. But
Uh-huh.
there's not a lot of people that are born completely turned on. And for me, I turned it off or quieted it to
Yeah.
conform.
Sure, you would have had to. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. You know, you bring me to one other point, which I would like to share if we still have time.
We
One of the
do.
reasons why I've moved my 6-step process, because they have created like a 6-step process that teaches you step by step how to wrap your head around all of this and the mystical perspective. Um, I've moved to apply it now to the Enneagram. The Enneagram, if people don't know it, it's a model of how to understand your personality structure better. And the first thing that's fabulous about it is that it lets you understand your personality is a structure. It is a mental structure. It has structure and specific ways in which it operates. And learning about the personality, or you can say personality, ego, mind, they kind of all go together. We're taking all of this that we've been talking about and applying it directly to the culprit, right? So the
Yeah.
more that we can understand the structure of our own personality, how it works, it helps us to disidentify from it. First of all, get a little
Hmm.
step back. And of course, that's the first step that needs to happen, is to like pull ourselves away from the personality's grip on who I am. I
Yeah.
mean, that's
Your
been
reality. Hmm.
huge.
Yeah.
This little girl from the Midwest and has no power, and she's not gorgeous and beautiful and skinny and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, so blah, right? You just sit back and, and to get distance from that and see, oh, wait a minute, that was a result of how I saw myself from the world's point of view. How do I
Yeah.
see myself if I'm great assumption? Imagine as if I am spirit. What if I am soul? You know that old thing
Yeah.
that somebody said, and I don't know who it was. You're not a human being having spiritual experiences. You're a spiritual being having human experiences.
Yeah.
Huge
Mhm.
shift in identity, right?
Yeah.
So I have found that when we can work with this shift at the level of identity, things change faster, right? They change more deeply, they change more easily. It's not easy, but it's one of the reasons that I moved into the Enneagram of both personality and then the Enneagram of holy ideas, where we put these together as one paradoxical whole. And it's
Yeah.
just really cool. So I want people to understand that your personality, the more you know what it is and its structure, the less you feel it's you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just operating SOP, standard operating procedure, right? And you don't
Yeah.
have to keep it that way. So
Yeah.
anyway, I wanted to throw that out because I really love the Enneagram. It's been incredibly helpful to understand my own personality, which is the tragic romantic personality, of course,
Love
highly
that.
emotional. I've
Well,
lived
I
it fully.
and
Do
it
you
was
know
fun
what
at
you
one
are on
point.
the Enneagram, Teresa? Do you know what you are on the Enneagram?
I was hoping you weren't going to ask because I've taken
Oh,
it several times and they can't,
that's right. You told me.
yeah, they weren't able to pinpoint me as one or the other. It was too evenly distributed. So,
That's actually a great skill though, to be able to, and probably partially because of your skill level that you have, your gifts,
yeah,
you can step into all the different personality structures and get a sense of that's great.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for putting a positive spin on that. And
Oh, for sure.
I I love the Enneagram, and why I was interested in taking it for myself gives you that high level view of how you see yourself
Yes. Yes.
and begin to unravel the programming that has made you who you are. You know, we're self-determined, right? And our determination is rarely based on the self, mostly based off of reflections from everybody else in our world. And to be able to unravel those, give them context, wisdom, so they become an asset. 100%.
Well said, because they do, they become an asset.
Mhm.
What ruined your life now becomes an asset. So it's something you utilize. I mean, the my depth of emotion and everything else that I have, and my ability to listen to people, my personality did it to manipulate them so they wouldn't leave me. Now I do it to honor their inner world so that I can help if they want help to navigate through an issue or something. But it's the same skill.
100%. And I love that.
Yes.
The example I use was I was molested 5 times before I was 15. And my garnering the wisdom of those experiences, allows me to meet people who have had similar experiences and allow them to entrain into removing themselves from the experience and gaining compassion and kindness and wisdom and love,
Yes.
um,
Beautiful.
which transcends the challenge.
It does. It does. Well, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful thing to have gone
Yeah.
through that and come out on the other side with with the skills and the heart that you obviously have and are sharing in your podcast. So thank you for that effort and that courage. Takes
Yeah.
those
Thank you.
things.
Thank you. So, one of the things that you shared with me before we jumped on to our conversation today, which has been absolutely brilliant. I'm so excited
Good.
for everybody to hear what you've shared. You talked about specific steps for how to go with the flow. Did you want to go through those before we wrap up?
I can do it if you'd like. Do you want me to show you a picture? You'd have to let me put something up, or I just
Can we
talk through
speak
it.
to them? Yeah, that'd be great.
Let me just
I
talk through it. Okay. The first step is you get to realize that the problem isn't really a problem. Okay. The first and second
Beautiful.
steps show you that. What you do is you take your dilemma and you take it out of your head and you map it out on a piece of paper utilizing the age old symbol of the infinity loop, which of course indicates the never ending flow, which is what we're talking about making sense of. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first step is you identify what it is that is your dilemma, what's throwing you back and forth. Well, should I stay home with my partner, or should I go to this dinner with my partner, or do I get to stay home and have alone time? Something as little as that. But
Yep.
for a lot of us, that's a major issue that breaks up marriages, right? So, so you identify what it is the problem. What's the problem? You identify where it's occurring. Let's just stay with choosing, shall I honor my partner's needs or my needs? Okay.
Right.
This is something you got to do all the time, right? Because it's an everyday thing. So you take your dilemma out of your head and you put it on a piece of paper in front of you in an infinity loop. And you understand, you find out that there are strengths and there are weaknesses to both points of view. There are strengths that come to you when you're able to let your partner's viewpoint be the one that determines your decision when you're
Hmm.
deciding for their needs versus your needs. So, with that context in mind, you then fill out this infinity loop. So, you've got strengths and weaknesses of both my needs, their needs. Okay, just to keep it clear in the context of my relationship. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what you understand is that there's a pattern here, there's movement going on. So we add some arrows around the infinity loop that shows you where the direction of the flow is. And the thing is about this direction is you cannot influence the direction of the flow. I'm sorry, but you can't do it. All right. It does not care what you value or don't value. It's like, this is the flow and this is what you have to learn to go with. So we get very clear about what the flow is. So that's the second step. The third step is we now put it in the context of a larger living system, right? And we look to science for a systems thinking, and ecology is the best way to look at it. So we go,
Mhm.
there's a bigger system, that this little system, this little infinity loop, and my little problem, should I do my need or their need? It actually exists within a larger system. And the thing about larger systems in ecology is that every larger system has three goals: to rebalance, to renew, and to expand. And our little infinity loop on the paper we've written down is in service to filling those three goals for the
Yeah.
larger system that we're a part of. Okay. Then we get to the fourth step, which is where you get to put down everything that you have a big no to that you've written down. Okay.
Mhm.
No matter whether it's a strength or a weakness. The fifth step is giving you three mystical tools that you could, three mystical perspectives from the mystics that allow you to release all of your negativity about saying yes to whatever you've written down, which works beautifully. The sixth step is where you walk on your infinity loop, and this is the big finale. You get it more into your brain and
Yeah.
your body, and you're doing it from a higher place where you're physically walking on your infinity loop that is now on the floor. So that's the six steps. And what happens when you get that really coded into your brain and you've answered all of your unconscious mind's objections, to saying
Right.
yes to everything that you've written down on that loop. It's very personal. So nobody else fills it out. Okay. Once you've got that, then you got, oh, okay, you're clear. You know what you want to do, and you have the strength and courage to do it, to take whatever it is, because the answer was always there for
Yeah.
you. You just couldn't see it because you were so caught up with a dilemma. What should I do? Should I follow my partner's needs? Should I fill their need, put myself aside? Or should I be really selfish and fill my need? And I'm just quoting some of what I hear,
Yeah. Yeah.
and let him suffer on his own, right? So those are essentially the six steps, and you learn how to do that. And we do it enough times so that you get it programmed into your system. And that's when it starts to take root for you as something that eventually, not in such a long time, starts to happen automatically,
Yeah.
right? I see a problem I have, I think about it, and the opposite immediately comes to mind.
Mhm.
I don't have to search for it anymore. So the first and the hardest step for most people, Teresa, is becoming aware about the amount of polarities that infiltrate their life decision making every day. So it really impacts very specifically the area of making decisions, which is where we stress out so much.
Yes.
What's the right
Agreed.
decision? Who will think, what will people think about me? So
Yeah.
that's kind of a light coverage of the six steps. They're very
I
fun.
love that. Well, and sounds so easy to step into with your guidance.
Yes.
Having somebody move you through the process and be that mirror
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
you can see each of those iterations. That's brilliant. I love it.
What I see
Okay.
from most students is they go, oh, oh, oh.
Light
So I guess
bulbs.
that works. Light bulbs happening, just like me in India. My light bulb went off. Oh, and
I
it's so
love it.
simple in some ways that it's kind of stunning, a little shocking.
It's in the simplicity that we find the wisdom though, isn't it? I mean,
It is.
when we overcomplicate things, I feel like we're putting bandages all over them so we can't get to that simple answer.
Right. Right. And I think that's one of the gifts of this process, which came through, by the way, many people. I have hundreds of students I've worked with who gave me feedback, a lot of meditators, because when I was in India, I taught this stuff in the ashram. I was able to work with several groups of several hundred meditators, gave me great feedback as we played with
Mhm.
how to do this. So yeah, it works. That's, I guess, what I can say is it works, and it simplifies and makes life happier.
Yeah, and everyone wants happier. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank
S
you for inviting me here. It was a lot of fun to chat with you. Nice.
it was
Thanks.
fun. I love the wisdom that we've shared. So tell people where they can find you, Ragini, because I know
Okay.
they'll want more information on the class, how to get enrolled, and more information
Mhm.
about you if they, not everybody's drawn to classes. Some need that one-on-one touch.
Right. So, what you can do to pick up a free 2-page handout for you, just go to www.theparadoxofhappiness.com. Just go to that for a free download. Yeah, you'll have to give me your email, and then, of course, you'll hear from me. Of course, you can always unsubscribe at any time. The longer course that I will be doing is starting on June 5th in the summer, and it's called The Enneagram of Paradox. And the subtitle is Bridging Your Personality's Story with Your Soul's Truth. And that is a 3-month course. And you can go to www.theenneagramofparadox.com to see what the course includes, the cost of it, how, who I am, a little bit more depth. Also, who my co presenter is. Her name is Robin Cameron, and she has been an Enneagram teacher of the narrative Enneagram for over 35 years. She's a lovely heart and soul woman. She studied with me for 3 years. And then I said, hey, you want to do this course together? Let's create the curriculum and let's co present it. So she said, yeah. And that's what we're doing. So I think you'll enjoy her. And so again, either the paradoxofhappiness.com for a 1 or 2-page handout for you free. And then you can go to theenneagramofparadox.com to learn more about the course, a 3-month course starting in June.
Wonderful. And I'll make sure for all of you out there that the links are down in the show notes below, and a gentle reminder to subscribe so you don't miss any of the wisdom that's being shared on Soul Channel. And thank you, Ragini. This was so brilliant.
Thank you, Teresa, very much. You're a sweet soul, and I'm so happy to have had this time with you. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Take care.
And for everybody joining us, thank you. I know that not only did you gain wisdom by listening to our conversation, but the energy codes and transmissions to help you facilitate your evolution are within. We love you.